Okay, welcome to the final day of the Dalmation virtual PTG Cinder sessions. John's going to be a little bit late, so he asked us to start without him. And what we will start, well, all right, so the first thing is just, does anyone have any like follow-up that they want to bring up from some of the previous discussions before we move into today's topics? All right, I have something about the, so I got the action item to deprecate the TGT iSCSI target helper. I came across this blog post by Yvonne from, I don't know, like 2016 or something, saying that the reason why we left, anyway, so I was looking at deprecating the stuff. The issue, what I'm not quite sure how to deal with is, so currently the default value for target helper is TGT ADM, which is what we want to say we're not going to support. He had this comment that the reason why it's the default is that we don't know what the upgrade path is, because I believe you've got to like redo the initiator map to switch over to LIO admin.
Right. Because for anybody who was running the LVM driver with that target before, you can't just change over to LIO because all the numbers for the targets and LUNs and things will change.
Right. So in the meantime, during Xena, or at the Xena, yeah, during the Xena cycle, Lee Yarwood put up this patch that got accepted into DevStack that made the default when you run in DevStack LIO. So I believe we could run grenade tests and nothing would hurt at this point, because everything's using LIO when you actually use Tempest. But I guess, so my question is just, yeah, what do we do about this? Or do we assume that anyone actually running a cloud is going to be using LIO ADM, not TGT ADM? Or do we need to ask on the mailing list? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just asking, when you say it is set as default, is it the Cinder target value of the configuration option, or is it in the DevStack?
No, so yeah, so in DevStack is set so that if you, it will configure, well, I guess it will honor, I don't know. DevStack is running with LIO ADM because they're having trouble. So it's over, so, but in the Cinder, so I'm trying to think, if you, but right, so anyway, in the Cinder comp file, the default is TGT ADM. So DevStack looks at the environment variable. I don't know if DevStack even pays attention to the, it's got to change the Cinder config though, right? Or else we'd be.
It does. It's in the lib
Cinder thing.
LVM backend file in DevStack, I think.
Oh, okay. All right. I should have looked farther. Okay. So DevStack is right. Okay.
One other reason that we never solved this was that that we never tried to figure out how to really do an upgrade from TGT to LIO.
Yeah.
You get blocked trying to do an upgrade on a system using it because you basically can't start using LIO at all while the TGT stuff is running, because they both try to bind to port 3260.
Oh, okay.
And so you can't really change it over on a live system in any like Cinder itself can't really handle that. You have to go manipulate the services and that kind of stuff.
Right.
So we kind of just punted on it and never really tried to handle an upgrade path.
So I'm thinking, oh, sorry, go ahead.
We got out of worrying about this for all of the, CentOS and Red Hat distros because they just removed SCSI target bills and it wasn't there anymore.
Right. I think Debian did the same. I'm pretty sure Ubuntu. So it might just not be an issue anymore.
Well, I think for Ubuntu, I was looking at this the other day. I think it's still there, but it's maybe only in the universe repo or something.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if that really tells us much about who's using it. But
Gorka, we're talking about the TGT ADM thing and deprecating it. I started to put together a patch, and I noticed that Yvonne had this blog post saying that the reason why the default is still TGT ADM is that we don't know how to do an upgrade if you're running. So I'm trying to figure out whether we need to still worry about that.
When we say we don't know how to do an upgrade, do we mean I have the deployment running and volumes are attached, and we want to keep them attached while changing to LIO, right?
Yeah, I guess specifically what he said was that we can't pass grenade with this, because if you have TGT ADM in one deployment, and then the default is LIO admin in the when you do the upgrade, it's not going to work. And we didn't have a automated path forward.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because of what I was saying a minute ago, where the only way to start LIO is to shut down the TGT stuff, which means that if you have instances running, they're going to lose IO. And
I mean, the only issue arises, I believe, is about the ID you said. That's different. I mean, you certainly have to interrupt the IO at some point if you change the implementation. I was like, from an operator perspective, we're not using it at all, so I'm just blindly giving my opinion. If you would do an upgrade node by node, completely unrelated to any OpenStack upgrade, just to change to a different implementation of attaching the iSCSI volumes, what data model issues are there? Is there some ID that's changing? That's an issue you said earlier. So otherwise, I'd say I switch over. We're using live migration, but could be any sort. So we put the machines that are running the old implementation into maintenance, so for not having VMs scheduled anymore, and then have them move over to nodes that run on a different configuration. And then but that's something that any running cloud would have to do if you change it, like while it's still having workload, right?
Yeah. And it's not just the LUN numbers. The authentication scheme is slightly different too. I mean, they both use iSCSI CHAP, but they use it differently.
But is anything of that persisted in the database, the LUN numbers and anything that I need to change on the Cinder side apart from the config?
It is stored in the attachment record, I think, the LUN numbers on the Cinder side as well as on the Nova side.
Yeah, it is, but it's also, in the LVM driver, your Cinder volume node has a persistent state of the iSCSI target and the data, which is different from most backends. Because it's not
the only way it's a volume conversion. It's like a different, like converting the volumes to different, even though it's iSCSI and LVM, it's converting it to a different volume backend, right? kind of like, because you need to change over everything.
Not really. I think all you would need to do is basically there is a node operation. I don't know if it shelf with offloading, basically to
Oh.
bring the VM down, and it destroys the attachment. So you bring your VMs down, and then you do the update, changing from TGT to LIO. Then you bring your instances up, and they will create a new connection information and attach again. So if it was my deployment, probably I may try either that or doing things manually myself, kind of hackish, like, ooh, let me create a script that stops everything, creates it, but it's a mess.
I mean, before we get into figuring all that out, it's also worth asking, is anyone running this in production? I
Yeah.
don't know.
So, okay. So all right. So I'll continue to put the patch together to deprecate it, and then put a thing to the mailing list with the operators flagged, saying what we're planning to do. If anyone has concerns, please raise them. Because it seems like all the
we
modern
can propose that as the path forward. Like, this is the deprecation. This is how we recommend you work around the current situation. Basically,
Okay.
if you are in that situation, this is what you need to do for the update or whatever.
Yeah. All right. Let me I'll have to put an Etherpad together so we can.
Well, you know, I was going to say we went through this with the IET iSCSI target.
I was going to ask about that because
it's actually the config option still says.
Yeah, that's going to be removed in V, and
it was removed a while ago.
Okay, I'll revise that. All right, so I should go see what we did about
for the next V.
Yeah, we didn't say which V, right?
Yeah.
All right, good. So that I forgot that was removed. So then that's good. Because I was thinking, oh shit, we're gonna have to do this one too. Okay, I'll go see what we did when we did the IET thing. Then
is it removed, or I mean the note says it's deprecated and should be removed.
Oh, the target code is removed, but it's still listed as an option that you can choose. So if you do that, I assume the volume service doesn't start unless it's got some fallback code thing, which it might.
All right, and then yeah, the other weird thing about this is the timing of so we want to deprecate it, but also change the default value, I think. All right,
I feel like I remember.
I was thinking we have to use the upgrade checker.
I swear I thought I added an option. Oh no, I'm thinking of LVM thin provisioning. Never mind.
Okay. All right. I'll follow up on this, and then we can talk about it at the next Cinder meeting or something, because it's a little complicated. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else got anything? Okay. I guess let me update the we all know what's happening. I'll update the events, and then we can talk about backups. Or Verjot, what were you going to say?
So there are other targets as well. Like, are they even used? Like, I was thinking if we're planning to do a cleanup, like there is this SCST one and iSCSI CTL. Like, are they used, or do we test them anywhere? I think in our gate jobs we just test LVM with LIO, or maybe there is a job for NVMe, but
they were tested at one point. I don't know. I mean, people had added them because they wanted to use them. I I don't know that I could tell you why they
I
wanted to
think
use.
the NVMe stuff is being tested.
Yeah, but there's like 2 more in there that are just more software iSCSI targets, and I think we added them because people wanted them in there, but I don't know if they provide anything or if anyone's using them or what.
Yeah, I was just pointing out, like, if no one is using it, like, we could ask
Probably
about
good.
that as well. Yeah.
I'll make that as a follow-up because I think that the big problem here is we got to change the default value for the configuration option. So that's going to be a
Okay.
Well, one way to do that would be to do it the way we did the LVM thin stuff, which would be to use LIO by default if you can, and then fall back to the other one.
oh, okay. Just have like a compatibility code thing.
I don't know if there's any platforms anyone's running on that don't support LIO, though. I guess it's really just depends on how you've configured your system.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks. That gives me some direction. Okay. I will update the events. Okay. All right. I guess scroll on up to what was it, like line 238?
You don't want it copied down, right? You just want to leave it there.
We could, I don't know.
Or one by one. I don't mind. Certainly not, because quite a few responses from
Yeah,
Pete
let's
or
just
others.
let's just go up to line 238. I'll put all the lines numbers change, right? So there's no point even saying what line number. All right.
I'd say let's copy each patch down if there's any comment to it. If that's anything that you want to persist, as in some sort of protocol.
Actually, let me just see what happens if I copy this whole section. Oh, it looks like it preserved the colors too. That's okay. All right. Yeah.
Well, not for me. It didn't. It's all yours now. All your color.
Oh. Well, that's really weird because yeah, in my Etherpad, it's just I'm seeing everybody else's colors. Okay.
Well, my point would be, don't copy it. If we have anything in particular that we talked about and that is like a kind of an outcome of the discussion we have here, then let's use that individual bug fix reference and write something about it, not just the whole stack. I don't know if we get to everything or if you even agree diving into each and every of those bugs.
Yeah, I think what might be helpful is if we kind of prioritize, which things we need to address.
I'd say from the numbers up there, everything from 242 to 250 is all small patches that simply require somebody to look at them, and it's just fixing something. It's not adding new features, just fixing something.
These are the bug fixes.
Yeah, the bug fixes. The only thing that I'd like to talk about is the lack of indices in the database. I believe Eric also looked at that, and you already gave some response. Yeah, I missed the patch about adding the index on the deleted column, but still there's no other indices on the database at all, on none of the columns. So the usual workflow would be to select only the backups of a certain project or a certain volume. So my feedback, especially towards the bug, would then be, is that fully resolved? You don't want to add any more, or is that a valid point that maybe it makes sense to add some on the
apologies, which indexes would you like to add on top of the ones we already have, which go by project and deleted?
Well, it's only about the backups table. That's the only table.
Yeah, that one already has those two indexes: primary project ID, secondary being deleted, so that you can narrow to the actually existing ones. I added that. I think I added the other day the patch in. I don't know if it was in Monday.
Okay.
A patch where I was adding it.
Yeah, maybe I misread that. You said code probably out of date, and then you had the paste bin one.
And I think Rajat even checked it live in his system to confirm that the indexes now exist. So I'm not saying that when you checked, they existed. I'm saying that today they exist because recently we merged a patch that was a prerequisite for quotas. We merged some stuff there, adding indexes.
Right.
I've linked both the patches, the patch that adds it and my local output where it shows the indexes in the chat.
Yes,
So I'm wondering if you think that there is a need for additional indexes, because as far as I know, those should be enough to remove the problem of non-purge backups, as well as not caring about backups from other projects. So you narrow it down to efficiently to the ones that should be relevant.
Right. Well, we run quite a few backups per automatically. We do that per volume. So to us, it might make sense to have it limited on even on the volume, not just the project level, but that might be our use case because we run quite a few incremental backups. So it could be a few hundred backups per volume.
So you would be getting, so your search for a specific volume would need to get all your several hundreds and then do an additional filter by volume, right? Which is the non-efficient part.
Right, yeah, but it's not like
totally,
it's still a big improvement, especially the deleted and the project thing.
But I get what you mean, depending on the amount of resources, because we have an additional query that for incremental needs the latest on a specific volume. It could make sense to have yet another index as for the volume. I think that would, in my eyes, for big deployments or deployments that do a lot of backups, that makes sense. So I think there is value in adding that additional index, maybe.
Right, same as for volumes. I mean, the volume table itself certainly has an index on the volume ID, and the project makes sense maybe to also have that, especially when you join them in, as in if you're going to search for a certain volume and you have that as a join key, the volume ID that is being used.
I'm lost.
If you join in the backup table and you use it as a join key, or the join column, you use the volume, so it makes sense just as an additional argument to have an index on it, because you could use it as to join in the backup table, as in show me all the backups related to that volume, to a set of volumes. So you want to have it as efficient as possible.
But do we really have an operation that does that, that checks all the backups for multiple volumes? I don't think we do.
I don't know if you do.
I don't think we have an operation, because the incremental backup, definitely we have that operation. Like, give me the latest, but to give you a latest, first the database will need to narrow down to all the relevant ones, and that will be going through all the backups. So that one, yes. The other one, I don't think we have any operation that would actually end up in a query with a join of those two tables for multiple volumes.
Yeah, true. Makes sense. Yeah. Just a thought from the database perspective. But yes, you're correct. The most sensible actual use case would be the incremental thing. List me all the backups for that volume because I need to narrow them down by date or whatever. Right.
Yeah. It is true that many deployments don't have as many backups as you suggest, but that is definitely a use case that a cloud needs to be aware of.
Right.
So
certainly it has to be balanced, not just blindly add indexes on everything. One thought, not saying this is not correct, just a thought. You're using a composite, the paste bit you showed me shows a combined composite index. In that case, the first column has to always be part of it, otherwise it will not work. But deleted is always part of it, right? Of the queries. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Let me drop the documentation from MariaDB.
Deleted always has to be, because the way we are currently doing the queries are usually for purge, where we go by deleted. So it helps us when you try to run purge, you can get it. When you run as an admin and you usually don't care about the project ID, for example, because you say, show me everything from everybody, you still usually only want to see the non-deleted, so that index will still work. And for normal operations, the default filter is to always include the deleted in the query. So that's why it was, that's the reason why we created it in that specific order, because deleted, it helps for multiple operations, and then only some of them need the project ID. That's why we did it with composite. Yeah.
Right. So then we're all done. Then maybe add one on volume, or maybe not. But that's we still reached a good state of the whole bug. Right. Yeah. Everything else, all the other bug fixes, they simply need someone. We can gladly do that. I have the time to look at them and give some feedback, or plus twos. Some of them Peter did look at, and he said, somebody else has to look at them. All improving the speed. Or
I think Ryan was mentioning maybe have them sorted in the order of things that are broken, basically bugs, and then improvements, so that we can go in the order instead of just jumping around. Oh, this one looks interesting, or kind of things that we really need to address to things that it could be nice to address.
So just from the wording, optimize and speed up, the first two are certainly improvements. So somebody might be a bug. That's improvements, less important. The other ones are all bug fixes. The Ceph driver can lock up. It can or deadlock. It can simply not recognize that the backup has actually failed, and it will never come out of backing up state. The snapshot is a consistency thing, and the other one, the indexes we talked about.
Okay.
So there we go.
Okay.
So do we want to should we discuss the features and specs and then have a review festival, or how do we want to do this? I guess I should just do whatever I want.
Well, maybe we can assign a couple of people to, or we can volunteer a couple of us for each of the patches and start reviewing so that we can not only have +2s, but that we can actually say merge at the end of the review.
Are we doing a divide and conquer, or are we going to gang up on one? I'm actually in favor of the latter. It helps me to kind of hear other people make their comments.
Okay, so we can do the review stuff now and then come back and talk about the not come back. I mean, we'll do the review stuff, and then after that we can discuss the open specs, or we can do it in the other order. What are people in the mood for right now? I guess let's just hit the bugs then. All right, so let's take a look at the Ceph catch more failure conditions on volume backup.
Oh, it has quite a few +1s already.
Where are we finding the list?
Sorry, I'm looking at the one that's on line 480, but maybe I'm the only one.
Nope,
Oh,
I'm
I'm
looking at the
still
same
up.
one.
Okay.
I'm still up in the 200s, so
Oh, I'm sorry, Alan.
that's great.
And I'm trying to figure out why it says that it is losing, that it's not catching the exception.
If you compare it to the original code, the issue was only one side of that pipe was being tracked. So you have a half open pipe.
Mm-hmm.
I can give you a pretty easy example. If you mess up with the authentication on your Ceph source, you would immediately get an error from the RBD export command, but it will not recognize that because the receiving side might have the correct authentication. So it's eagerly waiting for bytes to appear on that pipe, and it will sit there forever. That's actually exactly how we caught the error. We made a mistake configuring the backup cinder backup user, but only on the source cluster, the keyring, and we had like 50 backups in that backing up state, and we're wondering why is the RBD import process still sitting there and there's no export process, and then we saw that the pipes were half open.
Looks pretty well thought out to me.
Yeah,
I can only offer +1, but here it is.
I looked over this some time ago when Pete was helping with it, and it seemed good to me at the time.
So Christian, what return code values do you see in your environment? Like you said, like if P1 fails with that authentication and P2 passes, like previously we were returning just the P2 return code. What are these values? Like right now we have a condition P1 or P2. Either return code will be returned. So in an actual scenario, what do these values look like?
Let me open that again. Well, first it was only the P2 return code that was ever considered, right? So only if P2, so the receiving process ended, the whole backup stopped in any case, in any return code, be it 0 as in successful or any other return code. So as you see, return P2 is the only thing that was valid in that case. And it changed to also track the sending process. So even like in the past, even if that sending process returned an error and finished, the pipe remained open with the receiving process, because the receiving process didn't end in our case because we set or we messed up the keyring for the source Ceph on the source Ceph cluster. So the first RBD that did the export immediately stopped, but it didn't send a single byte. It only returned an error to standard error saying the keyring is wrong or whatever, authentication failed, and some other return code. But that wasn't picked up by the driver. It's exactly what the patch does, because only the P1 process ended unsuccessfully. But since there was not a single byte going through the pipe, the receiving process didn't fail or didn't stop. It was simply blocking and waiting for new bytes to come in. But that would never happen, ever.
And with the old code, like since it was returning just a P2 return code, so it was considered as a successful operation?
It was a never-ending operation because it didn't return. There's no timeout. That's a different thing. We even thought about adding the process tracking, the progress tracking, not process, sorry, a progress tracking to the code, but that was a bit too much. That would be another improvement to actually see if there's still bytes flowing. But this was like the most important bit, that only if both processes are still there and have not ended, the backup is actually still running. Otherwise, it's failed.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
I'm still not sure I understand why P2 would hang if P1 terminated immediately due to an error. Like I would have thought the P1 standard out close would have signaled to P2, hey, I'm done, that's all I've got. And that P2 would then complete saying, well, they didn't send me any bytes, but oh well.
Yeah, this is not the shell. I mean, the pipe handling is done in Python, so the pipe still remains. If on the shell, if you would run it in shell mode, then you would pipe one command and the other, and it would immediately stop if the left command would disappear. The process would disappear. But this is not the case here in Python. The pipe, if you don't care for the ending of the P1, it will still sit there. Because the old code only cared about what P2 felt like, and that didn't fail yet because we're still waiting.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure I understand what's then causing P2 to terminate in the new code.
It doesn't, but P1 terminates, and terminates with an error. So the whole thing is errors, because now the new code in 655, it has return P1 return code or P2 return code. If any of the processes was ending before, it was only the second, or the receiving one.
Right.
If only if that stopped.
Just P2, right.
So the main change is about caring for the return codes of both commands. If any of the commands stopped, the whole process can never be successful, ever. And whatever that return code is of the first process ending, that's the one, the backup, or the verdict for the whole backup.
No, that part makes sense. Yeah, shell stuff aside, just from my Unix system programming days, I'm still kind of hung up on what was allowing P2 to persist even after P1 had closed, and how that no longer happens in the new code.
I mean,
I get
believe
that
the analogy would be a named pipe. So it's
Mhm.
that the pipe is an independent construct here in this case. And the return code tracking has to happen independently in the code. So you have to, in the Python code, you have to actually care about tracking the return of the command. If you don't, the name pipe still exists. And since there was no single byte ever entering this pipe, P2 never could fail because it was still waiting for data to arrive. So that is why it was still sitting there, not returning any return code or exiting at all, while P1 was already gone, and the pipe still remains. So it's not the pipe that that went away for P2 to recognize that there will never be any data. It's just the sender disappeared, and yeah, and that, yeah.
So I may be asking the same thing Alan was getting at in a different way. Do we not need to call P2.wait in the new code? Or is that handled by communicate, I guess?
Yeah, I suppose, yeah. As you can see, it's Jan, our working student, that wrote the code. Very thankful that he did. I need to.
So communicate runs until, okay, so communicate runs until it hits end of file, and then it wait.
So yeah, again, that being the case, if communicate runs until it hits end of file, which it should do because you've done a P1 standard out close just before that, I don't understand how P2 could be hanging, and how the processing of P1's error code magically prevents P2 from hanging.
Was it because before P1 could run and fail before we even started P2? Because I think if P1 fails immediately and then you start P2 when P1 is already dead, I'm not sure if that is how that would have happened before, maybe.
Well, if P1 fails immediately, we handled that before. Pipe 1 failed.
Well, that's for an OS error, though. That's only if it couldn't find the program to launch it. I don't think the pipe 1 failed case is going to happen if you start the process and then it throws a authentication error or something. Because most failures won't be an OS error in that case, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it's So in the old code at line 623, we were putting the standard error that I guess would be coming back from the authentication failure into the pipe.
Maybe that's what's happening. That P2 in the old code, P2 is going to see
Something.
data that's coming from standard error from P1,
And then nothing else.
and then it's because we aren't doing the P1 wait, maybe we kind of have a deadly embrace that, you know, P1's standard out has been closed, but its standard error hasn't. And P2 is seeing something coming in on the pipe, P1's standard error. It's hard to say without doing some testing, but I'm wondering if line 650 in the new code is the magic.
That sounds like it's the only real change. That line.
Well, but the line 655 of the new code, where you return P1's error code, you know, takes precedence.
Yeah, if it's non-zero. Yeah,
No,
Yeah,
but
right.
the return code for P1, it's only filled by the wait method, I believe. So
Makes sense.
the wait method
it's
is
waiting.
the one
It's
that
waiting for it
fills
to
it.
finish. Yeah.
Right.
So even if we remove the return code being returned, the wait is the, like you were saying, Alan, I think the one
Yes.
that does something actually in the new
Yeah.
code.
Yes, correct. That's what the commit message says. It's also returning the error message, that the standard error, because otherwise, as an operator, you would never find out why it failed. You're correct. You're totally correct. The fix for the backup process to kind of stop and return with in an error condition would also work without returning it. But by returning it, you first of all get the error code from the first command, because it's the most important one in that case, and
Yeah,
also
you
the
know
standard
why it
error.
terminated.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm satisfied now that, again, I can't prove it mathematically on a whiteboard, but I suspect line 650 in the new code is the key to preventing P2 from hanging. And then the new code at line 655 just makes sure that the correct error is detected or reported.
Yeah, you can only return one, otherwise you would have to change the signature of all the function. Makes no sense. I mean, if it's failed, it failed. That's
Oh yeah, yeah.
good enough.
Okay, it now makes a little bit more sense to me. I had that strange little question in the back of my brain, but I think I've got it answered.
I'm just wondering, here the data movement, if I'm not mistaken, is handled by Python, right? Of the pipes.
Well, it's flowing
do you
between the processes. I mean, yeah, Python is managing the pipes, but it's a system call.
Yeah, no, but I'm looking at the communicate method documentation, and it says the data read is buffer in memory, so do not use this method if the data size is large or unlimited. And I'm wondering which data is it talking about? If it's talking about the output of the p2.communicate or the whole process.
So there was a comment from Pete, which it'd be great if we could find Pete. So he dug all into this in depth a while ago. But he addressed that exact concern in one of his reviews on this patch.
Yeah, Pete actually proposed a different thing. It was on the October 27th. That's this. Right, there you go. That's his comment, I believe.
So did we fix that concern by not using the return values from communicate?
Oh, yeah. Okay, now I see. Yeah, if you do communicate on pipe 1, then everything goes to has this exact problem that I was just saying probably. Whereas if you do it in P2, what you get is the output, right? Of
Yeah, so P2 shouldn't have much output, right? So,
Right.
exactly. Okay. So my concern. Thank you, Eric. I think I'm in the same boat as Alan. I don't fully grasp the exact low-level reason why this P1 weight fixes it. But I am kind of okay living in my ignorance.
I'm going to quote this at some point in the future.
So
how should the reverse be done?
I'm okay to giving it a +2. Normally, if I had reviewed this earlier, I would have complained about the release notes because it's too low level, the description, less of a what a user experience. But anyway, I'm
I did
cool with
leave
this.
Comment when there was no release note, so this was added, and I never looked at it again.
It's not bad. The problem is that, as usually happens with devs, we write the release note for ourselves, for other devs, and that's not the intended audience anyway. Yep.
Yeah, this
I'm
part
good with
is
this.
definitely confusing.
Yep. Too low level, but it's
So 2 cores need to agree to merge it. Like,
I already +2'd it.
We can count Pete as his +1 as a +2 now, because
Oh, true. He can change it. His +1 to +2. If he was around.
yeah, so we can just do that for him.
I already nagged him about looking at it again, please, but he already helped quite a lot fixing this. So I don't know if he would be comfortable merging it himself, because he kind of suggested a few things here and there. And
I think.
Well, actually, he's co-authored by, so yeah, we do need a different.
Yeah, and there's already enough cores in this meeting to actually get another +2.
Brian, I reckon I can do it.
Unless
I'm-
the other source thinks that they want to do additional testing to play around with that P1 weight and confirm how it behaves.
I think I'll +2 it and approve it because I've reviewed this like multiple times without actually leaving a vote on it.
All right, good, because I'm not 100% sure I understand how that's, but that's fine.
Well,
That's
I
good.
do know the reason why I +2 it, besides the answers to the questions I made, is that reading at the code, this does not break anything. So the worst case, it
Right.
doesn't fix the issue. Well, okay, but it is not going to introduce a regression, so I'm not that worried.
That's a good
And
argument.
presumably it actually did fix the issue. I mean, it made the symptom go away.
Right.
So should we move on to the next one? I'm not sure if Eric kept his vote. Okay, it's approved. So
All right, let's go to the next one.
Thanks a lot.
So we got at least one thing done.
Oh,
so
thank you.
Okay,
right.
looking at the snapshot status, it's always backing up. Yeah,
Okay.
that I wrote myself. I can not just look over someone's shoulder, so I can actually answer any questions.
So first thing I noticed that it's a bug fix, so it requires a release note, right?
Yep.
All right, I shall add that.
Well, the commit message could also explain what's going on here. I guess the idea is if you've restarted the cinder backup process at the right time, you'll end up with stuff stuck in a weird state.
Yeah, I mean, if you stop it at any point, then it's actually actively doing backups. The backup resources in the database are in the status backing up. Oh, sorry, not the backup resource, sorry, the volume or snapshot for that matter. And that is the issue. The volumes on the restart of the cinder backup, it will look for its own host name, whether it was actually running backups before, and those backups certainly failed because you stopped the process, and it will clean them up, as in setting the backups to an errored state because they never finished. This doesn't happen for snapshots. It does happen for volumes, which are changed to backing up. On the restart of the cinder backup, the volume status will then be error. Not the volume, sorry, the backups will be error, but not for snapshots.
Yeah, this
I
looks
actually
like it.
picked that up from someone. I just I saw a merge conflict to some change I did, and then I saw, oh yeah, that's really broken, and then I kind of tried to lick it into shape, and yeah, it's not from me. It's from Zhao, Xin, whatever. That's why I put myself as co-author. I likely changed most of the code, but to be fair, somebody else picked or found the issue and wrote a patch.
Yeah, I mean, this looks like it was just a clear oversight in handling snapshots of backups, because we did handle them right we did handle this situation right for volumes.
Yes, you see it's exact same signature of methods and everything that's already in place. Just apply this for snapshots. Yeah.
And this only hits drivers that do backup from snapshot. Is that right?
It's not about the implementation of how the snapshots are done. It's if the source is a snapshot, not a volume. Like a real user visible snapshot. If the user clicks on a volume and says create snapshot, then you have a snapshot that you have visible to you. And you can also create backups from that snapshot.
So when we create a backup from a snapshot, it does create a volume in the background, a temporary volume, right?
Well, that's what I'm getting at. Does it always do that, or does it do that unless the driver supports the attached snapshot stuff?
Yeah, I think that was a
Because
feature.
I suspect that this fix only is relevant for certain drivers, but I'm not too clear on the details yet.
May I ask again what you didn't like about the commit message? Because I'm quickly change that one.
Oh, not the commit message, release notes. I think it
And
was.
just release note was missing. Okay, all right.
Well, the issue with the commit message was that it doesn't explain what's happening here as far as what's happened when you have terminated the backup service while running backups.
I think the snapshot ID is when you back up a snapshot, not when a snapshot is being used internally.
Yes, that.
Correct.
Because you can back up a volume or you can back up a snapshot. And when you back up a volume, then yeah, maybe we use either a cloning, a volume clone, or a snapshot, and then we proceed from there. But this is different. This is just
So when you
back up this snapshot.
So when you
Yeah, as
back up,
Christian said, it's a user visible snapshot.
yeah, but that's totally orthogonal to what I was getting at earlier. So when you back up a snapshot, we always clone a volume and back that up, or what do we actually do?
You mean we create a volume from that backup?
No, how do we back up snapshots?
We either attach it directly or we create a volume.
Right, and so this patch fixes a thing that happens in both of those cases, is what you're saying?
Yes, but it doesn't solve the problem that we may be leaving a clone volume or somewhere. So it fixes the status of the snapshot only.
But I think the volume is already cleaned up in the code.
Right.
Where if your service suddenly dies, how it is cleaning anything?
Then I think this method of clean one backup is called during restart. I'm not really sure, but
Yep.
I was assuming. And in this clean one backup, we have cleanup of volume and cleanup of like snapshot is
Yep.
just added. So volume already exists. So you are saying
Yep.
like when we
The volume, the clone volume that will be created to use, it will
To create.
go into error. It will not be cleaned up. So it will be a human operator or the user that will have to clean up. It's not the end of the world. I'm just saying that this doesn't cover the cleanup of a resource, of a volume resource, in case it was being used for this operation. But it solves the problem of the status of the snapshot, which means that a human, which means that the system administrator does not need to give permissions to another user to change a snapshot status. And the system administrator will not need to be engaged in any way, because the end user will be able to delete the volume that it's left over.
Yeah, you're right. Like if we could handle it better, like list all the volumes with the snapshot ID and then clean up those volumes as well. But
It could be
Yeah.
important for the cloud, because those volumes, remember that I added the ignoring quota flag, so they will be ignored. And the user may not be inclined to clean it up because they don't care. It is not consuming quota. So it could be ideal, but I don't think it's important in this patch. Or
could follow up.
yeah.
Well, there is some code that looks like it tries to do what you're talking about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know who calls it, but I see all kinds of internal functions like cleanup temp volume snapshot for one backup.
Oh,
It's called
Then
when the backup manager starts up. I think.
Yeah, this is the cleanup on restart or on startup.
Yeah, it's run from. Yeah, it's run from init host.
Christian, I added a comment on line 248 with something that should be done slightly different. I made a suggestion. It's a very small change.
Let me reload that. 248.
Yeah, in the new code. I mean, so this basically you're calling directly the database API, and
Yes.
we prefer, when possible, to use the higher level abstraction that we have on top of that. And because you already use it on line 238 to get the
correct,
resource, it's like, yep. And if you, I forgot to say it, but if you can, instead of using a snapshot brackets ID, yes, a snapshot dot ID.
I was going to mention that. The same on line
Yes.
243.
Yeah. I'm
You've got
so much
snapshot
about
status.
typing and everything these days. Yeah. Silly me, yeah.
No big deal.
So would that be about the wording for the release notes? Reset the status of snapshots. A Cinder backup instance was backing up to available. Oh, sorry. Sorry, last sentence I messed up. Copy and pasting. This is the last sentence. All right, change the suggestion you made. Release notes are in.
So I'm wondering, why do we leave the snapshot in backing up for the duration of the backup anyway? If we've cloned it to another volume, we're doing the backup.
Ooh, Eric, you're ready for my feature request.
Oh, okay.
Hold that
like,
thought. Hold that thought. Yeah, actually, there's a feature request I've been discussing. We've been discussing before, is to introduce a different state tracking for backups, because exactly that's the thing. Any storage that is currently supported has snapshots that you can use. You never need to change the state of the volume or snapshot to anything because of the backup, because it's a completely independent process.
Yeah, and I assume we're doing that historically just to communicate information about what's happening rather than actual important state tracking.
Yes.
But if from the backend side, if the driver supports attaching snapshot and we attach that snapshot, isn't it better to indicate that this snapshot is in use for backing
Well,
up?
it could be in use and not in backing up or something, probably.
Yeah, although
Because
the state to me, I mean, we're jumping ahead to my feature request. I'll gladly discuss that.
This is a classic problem we've had everywhere in Cinder, and I think some other OpenStack services too, where we conflate state tracking mechanisms that we need for stuff to work with telling users, information about what's happening, because they're not the same thing, but we've treated them like they're the same thing.
In this case, I think it is not as crazy and in other cases because the user asks specifically, do a backup of this volume, and then they see the status change to, yep, I'm doing what you asked me to do. So unlike other scenarios where we use the status as a locking mechanism for internal stuff, I think in this case it's not that crazy.
But the snapshot is not usable until the length of the backup. Right? If the backup is a very long-running operation for hours and hours, then the snapshot is like blocked by
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Yes, and so
Because-
volumes. That's the whole thing about the spec I wrote together with Nicholas, because we want to run. As I said, we're pretty heavy users for Cinder backup, and we want to. And we also do live migrations of VMs, and also all of that is blocked because the volume state, if it's backing up, you cannot live migrate because you cannot reserve that.
Yeah, and it goes back to what Eric was saying. We mix the status is now a mix of a bunch of stuff, and it makes things harder in general. Because if we had like Novadas actions that are being performed on a resource, then the snapshot would be available as in ready, I'm alive, I'm not broken, I'm here, and then you would see what is happening with it. And you could have whatever, multiple backups or anything, or being restored to a volume. But those are big words.
I think Christian had a feature request, a spec for the similar
Yep.
problem when we are backing up a volume and we want to use that volume for some other purpose.
Yep. He was just mentioning that you cannot migrate it, you cannot do anything with it.
Yeah.
But not being able, and by migrate, I mean live migrate the instance, not migrate the volume, of course, because you should not be able to migrate a volume that you're backing up.
Yeah, the state for the attachment, it should be reserved in use, and currently it's backing up. So both the states could not coexist.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I also checked what Alan was suggesting about the cleanup. So I checked the whole code, and when we create a temp volume from a snapshot, we set the temp volume ID in backup status. And after we clean up this, the clean one backup, we do clean up that volume, like check backup.temp volume ID or backup.temp snapshot ID. So both of them we clean up. So that is being cleaned up already.
Okay, fantastic. So no follow-up patch is needed.
Yep.
Awesome.
I just ran into a merge conflict because I wanted to rebase it on master before I was pushing that one about the snapshot cleanup thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Just wondering, is that because it wasn't indicated that there were merge conflicts, was it?
I don't see in this patch saying that it cannot be merged because there are merge conflicts, to be honest.
Yeah, that's why I was.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's really weird. Silly me. Yeah, sorry, because I wanted to look at the old comment. I selected a different patch set when I checked it out. So I went to patch set 1 and made the change that you said to patch set 1, and the reason. Sorry, that's silly me. Yeah. I don't want to. I don't want to hold you. Hold you up. I'm because we quite discussed that. If you want to go to the next one, I clean it up and I push it. We don't want to have everybody waiting because I'm kind of fiddling with the code.
Okay,
I'll get it done quickly, but. Don't want to rush it now.
Since the index one, it's already present, the indexes. I believe the bug fixes have been completed, and now we can go either to improvements or.
Yes, well, yeah, well, there's improvements. Yes, yeah.
Oh, but there are in feature test specs. I see bug fixes as well, right? Oh, but there are no patches to the bug fixes, just reports.
Yeah, the improvement one is from me, and the other one is actually from Peter, I believe. He sped up the startup database query, and I sped up the incremental backups query. So it's a database query thingy. Somebody needs to dive into those two. Either way, I mean, whatever you have time for, I'll gladly.
One of them seemed to have a -2 from me and Pete. The fix snapshot status is all with wait a moment. Did I click on the wrong place?
Which one are we talking about? Any order?
Probably I opened the wrong thing. Never mind.
Yeah, the -1, I believe, is about the status field. We first thought a task status would be a good idea, but it is not actually. Any volume, any task on a volume, that's the one you were clicking on. That was the previous suggestion, but we now are quite convinced that only tracking the backup state independently is a better approach. So should we agree on which one we are talking about, or what's the most attractive to you all, and then.
I see that Pete has a -1.
Which one?
On I think it's your patch, the optimize getting parent backup for new increment.
Oh, okay, we're still on those improvements. All right, sorry, I kind of lost track there, but the parent backup thingy. I haven't looked at it in a while. Yeah, Pete had a concern. I addressed that, I believe. Yes.
Yeah, which line on the Etherpad are we looking at?
Yeah, sorry. Improvements and then optimize getting parent backup for new incremental. So it's the one that's ending in 729.
I'm lost again. I need to. Sorry, but I need a line number in the Etherpad.
474. 474.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sorry, I might have missed it. What happened to the previous one we were reviewing? Like,
he has to make a couple of changes, and because he tried to rebase the wrong one, he's taking a couple of minutes to get it done.
okay,
Yes.
but it makes sense. Like the patch looks good.
Yeah.
In the commit message, it looks like, first of all, some of the lines are long and are wrapping awkwardly, but the patch owner is Pranali. So the co-authored by, I think, should be you, Christian.
Oh, good point.
I didn't know that Pranali was contributing to Cinder Backup. That's awesome.
And I hate to be the same person, but it also is missing a release note. So
say again, please. Sorry.
it's missing the release note
Release note,
again.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But before you kind of praise Pranali, it's from 2017 actually. The whole idea to improve that, and I kind of ripped the code apart. I just didn't want to send it different patches. Simply took it and
Yeah.
So I pushed the change to the first one. I'm now checking out the one about the parent backup determination. Apart from the co-author thing, did I miss anything you already said that you want to changed?
The release note. I
Oh, the
think
release note. Yeah,
Project
sorry.
mentioned.
Yeah. Sorry, that was on.
I was downvoting the patch for one thing, and suddenly I realized that we have the same issue right now. So different, not the fix would not be part of this patch anyway.
So not too many technical details for the release notes. Optimize getting parent backup for new incremental. Is that too vague?
Or you can say lessen the burden on the burden on the database when doing incremental backups or something like that. Yep. But yeah, that is the level of text that we should include, and then we reference that's why we include the link to the Launchpad back, so that they can go from there to a back, more details to the code, to a patch, so they can get anything they need if they want to know more.
We will need Pete to remove his -1. Well, maybe we don't need to, but
Yeah, it would be polite.
it would be polite.
But when Christian updates his patch set, then the -1 automatically gets moved.
Good point.
For the release notes, it's 80 characters, is it? Or is it not important there?
Not super important.
Oh, yeah, I'll break it. That's-
I found this one is an issue. So because this code will not work. Okay, I added a comment on a change that needs to be made on the API, on the SQL Alchemy API method, where you are, well, if you refresh, you will see it.
Oh, I'll refresh.
On line 6482, you are doing query.filter. That's
Right.
not enough. You have to say query equals query.filter. Otherwise, the filter is getting lost, not being actually used.
All right.
Otherwise, looks good.
The first one you need to explain a bit more. Let me change the second one about the query filter first, so I have that down. And the
Yeah,
other
the
one,
FYI, it says that there seems to be a problem. Yeah. But it's not in your code. It's a different bug.
oh, I see. Okay, it's not about me having to change anything. I see.
Nope.
I see. All right.
No.
Let
That's
me
why
fix
it's
the-
only an FYI. It's like we have another bug. Because for the rest of the guys who are looking at this, it's if we are trying to find the parent, we are filtering the backups by those that are available. But what if the parent backup, the one that should be the parent, is getting restored? The status will not be available, will be restoring or whatever. So we will skip that and we will go to an earlier one. That's not what it should be happening. So we should be filtering by any status that means that the backup is valid.
But the thing is, it's all you're correct, I believe, in regard to the state machine. But the thing is, you cannot create another backup because the volume status is considered. You can't.
What do you mean you can't? Sorry, by the way, did
if-
anybody allow Josephine to enter, to join? I saw the invitation and it disappeared. Well, the request. No? Sorry. Oh, she's here. You were saying, Christian, about the volume, but the volume, it's not. So let me give you the whole example. So you have volume 1 with 2 backups. Backup old, backup new. And you want to create a new one, but you're restoring the newer backup to a different
Oh yeah,
volume.
sorry. Yeah. My mistake. It's not about the volume. It's about the backup state being.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry.
And because we are filtering by available, we will not use the latest
Yes.
that is valid.
Because the volume will never have a status of restoring because you're restoring the backup, not the form of volume.
Exactly.
I
Right.
see.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's to a different volume, which is also an option that we have. So, but definitely not part of your patch.
What should exactly happen? Like if the latest backup is in backing, like restoring state, then we should fail the operation?
No, you should use that one because what you're using is not the backup. You're using the checksums of the backup. So the metadata is what you use. You don't actually read data from that backup, so you don't need to access it. You just go check the list of checksum based on the blocks and read the data, create your new map, compare, and wherever it doesn't match, you start moving. That can be done regardless of what you're doing with the original backup. As long as you're not deleting it, it's fine. So basically, available and restoring are valid statuses for a backup. I don't know. I don't think there are any other valid ones. But yeah, that I just realized because now the code that Christian wrote is so much easier to read than the Lambda that we had. It jumped to my eyes when I was reading it. Like, okay, filter by this, by this, by this. Oh, this doesn't look right. In the old one, I missed it.
Do we have a tiny function that sort of encapsulates that so we don't have to hard code a list of states?
I don't think we do. For other resources, maybe we have it, but I don't think for this one, at least.
This may not be the place or time to create one, but if there is one, we should be using it.
But there's nothing, Gorka, that you want me to be changed in this patch yet about this, accepting different status or anything. You want to patch that independently,
no,
right?
Not for that. Just for the one that has the comment that has a -1.
Yes. Yeah.
Actually, if you made the other change as well in this patch, I would vote for doing two things in the same patch. So
Right.
yeah.
All right. I just pushed a new revision, hopefully addressing the things you said.
So we are not testing this SQL Alchemy API and this whole method anywhere. Right, Christian, or is it being tested indirectly
Oh, sorry,
somewhere?
there was a question. Sorry, you have to repeat it. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just asking if this SQL Alchemy, this new method that we've added, backup get parent for incremental, it's not tested anywhere, right? That's why I even missed the condition by Gorka, because in SQL Alchemy test, we do like if query dot this filter is being called or not. So we assert all those mock calls. And yeah, that could be the reason this was missed.
I added some test.
Gorka, you're
Changed.
on mute.
Thank you, Rajat. Yeah, I was just agreeing with you that now that you mentioned, I see that we are missing the whole testing of the database changes. Like there is no test for that in the patch.
Okay. Yeah.
About the Brian, about the bug number, isn't it in the message? Closest bug.
But not in the release notes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. It's no. See what you're getting at.
Yeah, it's just we have a format. So it'll be a
Yeah,
quick.
sorry. That's
Sorry.
Rajat, since you +2 the other patch, I think we are kind of accepting that the release note is longer than we like the lines, right? It goes beyond 80.
Yeah, even if we add a new line, it will show up the same way in paragraph in the release note,
I know.
think. But for
Yes.
readability, that's why I pointed out, like in general, we break
Yeah, but-
lines to readable.
I mean, since you +2'd it, you're okay with it.
Yeah, I am.
if you that is there a the bug link? Isn't that missing on the first patch as well? The one that Brian just mentioned that I didn't put a bug reference
Right.
in.
Yep, you're right. Yep,
So,
yep.
Let me then fix both of them.
Please, please, and don't go beyond 80. The 80.
Yes. Yeah. Sure.
Sure.
I'll do
Yeah,
that.
perfect. And then we match that one.
Okay.
Because the changes for the getting parent backup for new incremental, the optimization, I think that because it needs testing, it will take you longer to write those tests. That's not a 5-minute thing.
But there are some examples, right, of tests that do database related.
Oh, yes.
Everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Let
section.
me
I'll
find you where they are.
All right. In any case, I pushed a new revision to the optimize getting parent backup just for the sake of it. So, but I know that the tests are still lacking. All right, back to the.
I have added a -1 for the same like SQL Alchemy method to be tested. I hope that's fine. Okay.
All right, so bugling and line break, right?
Yeah. Thanks, man. I almost forgot about the bug reference.
All right. All right, push the new revision for the snapshot status thing.
Okay, I will take another look.
Right. I already +2'd it. So if you are going to +2 as well, you can as well add the verified. Well, the workflow.
Okay.
Well, I'll get back to you some other day about the parent backup thing with the tests. That's gonna take a while, and I want to do it properly, not just rush it through. Yeah, the other one, the other improvement, the speed up, is actually from Peter. So
I've already reviewed that a couple of times. So
I really just love the improvement. That's why I brought it up.
Yep, I already reviewed it, so I'm familiar with it, and I'm going through it again. And I think it is ready. Looking at the code. Yeah, I hate it, but to -1 it, but he has duplicated code in the testing. And by duplicated, I mean doing the same thing twice, not that there is a possibility of reducing code duplication. So, yeah.
I'm not disappointed at all. Just as long as we keep it going and it's moving along. It's another one of those old ones that somebody else actually from China Mobile, I believe, actually pushed, and I believe I got into discussion with Peter, and then he then picked it up and improved on it, which I'm quite grateful for. That, as I said, any improvement to the Cinder backup that makes the things move along quicker is greatly appreciated. So, how much time do you guys actually have? About
I don't even want to say, but we're sort of committed till 1600.
Well, it's 1707 here, so bye-bye.
UTC.
Ah,
At that time, I wouldn't even have joined.
true. You would have been over before you had it started.
Yeah.
because if I'm well then if we would jump to features at all, the one at the very top is a feature, but it's an implemented feature actually, and we've been over that the keeping of only a few snapshots, not all of them.
Yeah, this is one I was not thrilled with because
I
of
know.
the fact that we use them.
So with the specs, is the idea to review the spec or just discuss the design of it if it makes sense?
Yeah, I kind of tried to sum everything up we ever talked about. That's the snapshot thing is the first one. It's in 495, and then you're talking about 501, the spec to introduce a new status field. It's a big one, but we briefly touched that before, as in removing all of the backup status related thing out of the volume status. That is quite the idea. But yeah, I'm not able to provide like a fully reviewable spec, but we talked about this before, and it reached a state where you accepted this as a good idea. But the question is, how do you implement this? As in, like, implementable spec, not that's what's getting at. The idea is kind of accepted because it was merged before. I asked previously if I need to resubmit it for a new release, and somebody, I don't know who, responded, no, if it's accepted, you don't need to resubmit it. I believe that was the kind of response. But now it's just a good idea and a merged spec, but it will never reach Cinder backup if there's no code written. But yeah. So if anybody's confused, that's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, thanks for explaining. My question was more about like how as a team we should approach these specs. Like, do we want to review them now or just discuss the design and do the review later?
Question is, I mean, it's already a merged spec. Do you want to take back your verdict, not your personal verdict, but you as a team, as this is a good idea and we want to do it? Because to me, it's hard to read from just the status of it being merged, and we've talked about it. Some agreement was reached that this is a good idea to do. The question is how it's getting done.
Yeah, I think that somewhere we've got documented the general thing is if the spec's been merged but not implemented, it needs to be rediscussed just so we make sure it still fits in with current plans and that everybody's on board. So the fact that it was merged before means, it's highly probable that we're okay with it, but we do ask to look again.
Right. Should I then do that, as in not just now, but in general? I gladly resubmit it. The question is, we cannot possibly write all the code, and we need buy-in from you guys, even if we would attribute some developer time to implement the necessary changes. This is a big one, like the whole state machine for volume, for backup. So yeah, there's plenty of good ideas that can easily be found all across OpenStack. The question is it good enough to put in the effort to actually make it happen?
Yeah, because if not, the same thing's going to happen. A couple cycles from now, we'll be saying, hey, that was a good spec. We should do that.
Sorry, but what are we looking at right now?
I'm looking at the patch the one that I didn't love the idea, on line 500 of the
So
Etherpad.
this one, that's the one. Currently, the snapshot thing.
Yep. Basically, only keeping n last the snapshot of the RBD when doing backups. You remember they are in sync, backups with a snapshot so that you can delete whatever and you're going to still do incremental correctly. This proposes to remove the very old backups, the snapshots, leaving the backups orphaned.
Gorka is likely remembering the discussions about this one. Is everybody grasping the idea why we suggested this to be implemented?
Christian, I haven't finished the review, but I sent a couple of comments. The
All right.
important one would be, by sent a couple of comments, I mean I added a couple of comments to the patch. The important one would be how we are deleting all snapshots, or more appropriately, when we are deleting them. We are deleting them after doing the backup and before finishing the operation. This means that because this can take a while, deleting always may take a while in Ceph, because you are kind of a squashing thing, I believe. This could delay, I could be wrong, but I think this could delay the returning, the marking of a backup as completed. So the backup has actually finished, but we are deleting the snapshot that we need to clean up. And the user is still seeing that the backup is being done. And we are waiting for the deletion. So I don't know if this is...
I'm not going to argue too much about that. I believe, though, that that Ceph immediately returns if you ask it to delete a snapshot, and then it does the snap trim asynchronously itself. So it immediately returns, yes, snapshot is gone. So the addressable object that you use as a Ceph client C as a snapshot is gone immediately, but then it will do the snap trim, and that will take a while. It could, depending on your on the type of Ceph cluster you have, even a few minutes, because it's queued with all the others. We see the snap trim thingy queuing up if you have a burst of like 100 backups, 100 snapshots actually, that you remove immediately. And yeah. What I'm saying is, Ceph immediately tells you as a Ceph client, yes, I've deleted this, but the actual removal of the Rados objects, which make up the snapshot, they will take a while.
So this is faster than normal image deletion, because I remember we added a feature specifically to the RBD driver because Ceph had problems with the performance of the deletion. They were deleting a lot of volumes, and Cinder would take forever. So that's why I'm bringing this up, because I remember Ceph having a problem deleting images in the speed of this.
Right.
I'm not saying that the same case is happening here, is that I just have that concern.
So if this was the case, that this has to be done asynchronously, how would we best approach this then? Because this is the time when we have the Ceph client, right?
Well, the Ceph client, you can always create a new Ceph client. It's creating Ceph clients is not a problem, because on the backend we use the same credentials for everybody. So it's not like you have to keep the context and everything. I assume we should either create native thread, or a thread that does it, and we just continue our life and ignore and leave that thread doing things. I think that's the best way.
Do we do that anywhere in the driver? Do something asynchronously that you can?
I don't know. In other places in Cinder itself, I think we do have.
Yes.
PTG do that. And I'm thinking that, okay, so in a scenario where a system admin sees this feature and suddenly says, oh, this is what I've been waiting for, let me put it to 4 so that I only keep 4 snapshots.
Right.
And suddenly a user creates a new incremental backup and then suddenly this method has to delete like 20 snapshots because this has never done before.
Yes.
Suddenly the first incremental backup of any of them will take a very long time. That's also what I'm worrying about, that specific case.
Yes. Yeah, I just referenced the documentation for snapshots, obviously, but there you see the snap trim mentioned as well, so that it actually does delete them asynchronously. But I believe the interface to the Ceph client is fast in that regard.
Okay.
Just because of that reason, Ceph does its thing in the background, but you as a consumer can delete it instantaneously.
So maybe it's different than images, or maybe it's just a matter of how many are happening concurrently. Okay. So my only worry now is that you can suddenly have to delete 20 snapshots if you have many incremental backups and you enable this feature.
Yes. One thing I added years ago was the fast diff capability for the images. That is something that that speeds up the snap trim and the identification process tremendously. It's been in Ceph like 5 or whatever major versions. I added that to the capabilities that every image should be created with the fast diff feature to have. So Ceph maintains an overview so that deletion is much quicker, because we had performance issues there in the past because it didn't even start snap trimming because it didn't even know which blocks it can, or which radars objects it could throw away. It had to scan the whole image for differences and everything, to do the checksumming and everything. That was like really slow. But that's all back in the days. It's now a standard feature on any Ceph cluster.
Yeah, no, I mean that even if deleting one snapshot is a quick call, if suddenly this has to delete 20,
right,
it will not be, still it's 20.
I mean, if you have any hint on how to do that asynchronously properly, as in how do I take the list of snaps and issue those calls asynchronously?
Well, it gets, if you do it async, it gets even a little bit more painful because you have to make sure that the user does not call another backup while you're deleting those snapshots. So yeah, maybe
Right.
we should
but then the
just
code
leave it.
Yeah, if you would do another backup and you would reach the point where you raised this condition and the snapshot is not there, it will always force a full. So it will always fail safe, in a sense that safe in this case is it will do a backup, but it will be a full backup if the snap is gone that is actually looking for.
Not really, because there is a race condition that could happen, which is where the new call would do a listing of the available snapshot. It will find it. It will think everything is fine. So that's why maybe
the listing. True.
Yeah. Maybe we just leave it as it is. And if at some point it is raised that, oh, this is too slow or this is a problem, we just improve it.
Fair point. I mean, anything constructive that we can implement, as in, we gladly do, but it's adding complexity, as you said, doing that. So it was also a trade-off in some sense.
What I will suggest is to add the trimming, the cleanup of the snapshot as a different method, not in this huge method.
Yes, that's a good idea. Yeah.
But that's trivial to do. So
but I won't do it now synchronously. But that's good. Yeah, it's a good idea. I mean, the whole reason I brought this patch up again, because yeah, we really love to have it on board, because we have custom code that now deletes snapshots, and we really hate it. And somebody else, some other operator, I believe, Altium was the company name, commented on this patch saying, yeah, please merge this. And then I thought this is a good idea to bring it up again. It's maybe, yeah, it's seldomly an issue for operators because they don't run as many backups as we are. But
I must have woken up today with a hole in my brain. How do I add a comment to the patch in a way that it doesn't discard all of my formatting or treat it like Markdown?
You have to sort of experiment, but if you do blank line and then 3 backticks and then
Okay, backticks. That was, I think, what the part that I forgot.
And then you have to close it with backticks too.
Right. Yeah, I'm gonna
That's
experiment.
Markdown to say this is code.
Yeah,
Don't do
right.
anything here.
Yeah, I
that
just couldn't
usually works,
remember
but there's some weird cases where.
Yeah, that seems to have worked.
Okay.
That's the part that I couldn't remember. The magic incantation to say this is code.
Yeah, for a while, a long time ago, if you kind of introduce 3 spaces or something like that,
Yes,
it
then
would
it would do it
automatically.
automatically.
But I prefer the backticks, definitely.
Well, except now that what's happened is I always get confused because you can't really use, if you try to use a backtick in line, you get some kind of weird behavior. I don't know.
So even if you put 4 spaces, it takes it as a code. Like I usually do that.
Okay.
Yeah, this is where it's like secret squirrel knowledge.
Yeah, there's. Right.
you muted, Goka, if you.
Yep, I was saying something. Yes. If you want to write a backtick, you have to escape it with a backslash.
But what if you want to
I
quote
can
it?
never remember. I always wind up doing like 8 different things and finally getting it. But
Yeah. Or I just asked you guys and you gave me the answer. So this is just a partial reply to flush the buffered comments.
Gorka, can we then or can I reply something to your review remark about the asynchronous calls to snap clean, and then also the race condition, because that I've been thinking about. We still have the volume status, right? So you cannot start another backup for the same volume. So that one backup was.
But I was saying if we do it asynchronously. So imagine at this
point.
point,
Okay. In case if.
frame.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah. That is when we run into a problem. That's why I am inclined to accept this without a different thread, because of the complexity you create. Not the complexity only of async, but also preventing race conditions. It's like, no, let's go with this, because like you say, the status also already prevents problems.
I see. I was taking this as 2 different things to fix, and I thought, how can I fix a race condition? As I see, there's not one if you don't run it asynchronously. I see.
Exactly.
But the main thing the main reason why I put it back on this massive list of things is to find out if it has a chance to be merged. I mean, it's fine if it's not ready, if there's things that need to be fixed or changed. Good, because I'm gladly doing that. question was more or less, will you ever merge it? Because otherwise it makes no sense to maintain this big piece of code and yeah, keep
Well,
asking for reviews.
Yeah, I don't love the feature, but I'm not going to veto it. I mean, there are clearly people needing this. It is not unreasonable. It just leaves the whole backup in a weird situation. But the default is to behave as it is today. So from my customer's perspective, this doesn't create a problem. And I don't think it is going to introduce really any performance impact the way it is coded for the customers that don't use it. So I'm okay.
All right. Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
I don't know about the rest, but I'm okay with it.
So this might be a dumb question, but like, where do these snapshots are being used in, say, in the backup process? Like, I see we are just directly going and deleting the snapshots, but were they being used previously somewhere, and we need to take account of that?
So the way this snapshot work is, because this is only for the case of RBD volume driver to Ceph backup driver. That's the only case where this makes sense. And the thing that happens is whenever you're doing a backup for a volume, you create, so the first backup is a full backup. You do RBD, export everything, put it here, and now you have your volume and your backup is literally the same thing. They are RBD images. There is no difference. But now whenever you do an incremental, what you do is you create a snapshot on the source volume. But those snapshots are internal to the backup system. And they are used to have a match between that snapshot in the volume and the backup you do. So that whenever you do an incremental, you can do a diff, a quick diff to this snapshot. So you do the export of the diff and you import it, and you constantly keep matching a snapshot and backup in there. So you can delete any backup, it will delete the snapshot, and you will still be able to do incrementals. So we are keeping kind of parity between a snapshot and backups, and that allows us to do incrementals always. The problem that this creates is that the more backups you create, the more snapshot you have, and that's a problem. And because we don't allow things like differential backups, you are kind of in a weird position. Anyway, so what they want is to be able to delete the snapshot, and with the new code, what can happen, and it's contemplated in the code, is that you want to do an incremental backup, but you cannot do it because you have done a snapshot backup pairs. Now they have been trimmed by the feature here because there are too many. Now you delete your latest backups, and now you find yourself in a situation where you cannot do incremental because the snapshot for the last backup are gone. So the code says, okay, if it's not there, we will do full. It creates a user message, which is something that I requested, so that the user, when they request incremental and suddenly find that they have a full backup, because the database is going to reflect a full backup, they can go to messages and get a message. So
is this more kind of a bug fix? Like, as you mentioned, like users can delete the backups, and now when we are deleting the backups on this side, then we end up in a state where
it's not a bug fix, because the new code is the one that it's introducing that behavior.
we couldn't do it before.
Code we had is for every backup, we will have a volume snapshot. That's the code we have today. And that's what creating problems for them, because the snapshot consumes space more and more and more. And they say, okay, our customers usually just create backups and delete very old ones. They don't delete the last 4 or the last n. That's not how they are working. And so they say, okay, I just keep 4. And in case they create a couple of them and they say, oh, I don't like this one, they still can do incremental. But if they delete too many of the last ones, they no longer can do incremental.
We also
What happens
reference
if-
in the commit. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
The question, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's the delay of video conference. I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just saying, in the commit message, we referenced the commit that changed the behavior in the first place. That's when we started to see the issues, because back in the day, Cinder backup would only do 1 snapshot and maintain that to allow for the last backup to allow forward incremental, as in adding new incrementals. But then, exactly as Gorka said, you couldn't delete them without Cinder backup actually failing to ever do any incremental. And then the change was to keep all of them snapshots. And for us, because we're doing so many incremental backups, actually automatically, the users don't do that. We had the issue that all of those snapshots remain on the expensive primary storage, kept forever, but we don't need them. We'd only need them as a means to create a new incremental. We don't need the snapshots on the source volume anymore, because that's the sole purpose of a backup. You don't need the snapshot on the source to restore it. You would need it to create more incrementals based of it. But we only need the last one or the last 2 or last 3 to have a safe means of creating a new one. And in case everything fails and we don't have any snapshots anymore, we do a full backup. It's still cheaper for us than to maintain all of this snapshot or the diff blocks on the primary storage.
This is basically a big difference on depending how who is using the backups, what is the expectancy, who is paying for the space of those snapshots. So from a user perspective, if I am doing things and I request an incremental, I expect it to be incremental. But if you're doing something automatically for your customers, then you want to not waste the space, basically. Like Christian said, I don't care if every full moon, it takes a little bit longer. The space I'm saving is worth the while. Yeah.
These snapshots were just created for the incremental backup, right? Like when we
Yep.
were
There is no Cinder snapshot representation in the database. The user don't know those exist.
okay. So it's just on the Ceph side.
Exactly. So
Okay,
this is something kind of weird of the RBD backup driver. But because I think I was the one that raised the bug and the concern and bother Chinica back in the day to get it fixed. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, initially I was confused with Cinder snapshots. Now makes sense. These are internal on the RBD side. Or
yeah, that's why it is safe from a user perspective. They are not suddenly losing a snapshot. Yeah, that would be crazy.
Yeah, that'd be no. But yeah. I'm not even attempting to do all of the changes or to weave in that feedback that you're giving just real time. I'm just going to sit down quietly and address everything you feel needs fixing. To me, why I brought the issue up was, seeing if that functionality could be added at all. That's my main thing. So,
Mike, now I have a question. I will add it to the review. How sure are we that when we search and we get the backups, they are in order, the snapshot? Because we are deleting them on the premises that they are being returned in order, and the first one is oldest, right?
Yes.
Is that always the case? As in the code in the client or the server ensures that that is the case?
Yes, it's in some belief it's documented that the ID is in order. So it's always the one that's created earliest has the lowest ID or whatever how you describe that. But it's a good feedback. If you add that, at least we could add a comment line mentioning this is a contract thing from Ceph or the RBD client, or if we can improve on this, as in actually use a strict sorting to ensure this is the case, even if Ceph would ever change anything. That's a very, very feedback. We don't want to wreck data. I mean, it's only it's only functional backup snapshots because they are looked at by name, right? Because they have a certain naming pattern. So we never ever looking at or can confuse them with any other snapshot that the user actually manually created for themselves. But still, we don't want to mess things up. Just especially because we have this fallback mechanism to full backup. So it would take quite a while to figure out that there's actually a problem, that we're deleting the wrong snapshots, because it would always go to full backup, which could be unnoticed, right? So we actually want to make sure we only delete the snapshots that we...
Actually, it would be weirder because you would be leaving the 4 oldest ones and deleting the newest.
Yeah, if it was completely the opposite way, that you would notice, but it would return them in a random order.
Oh yeah.
So depending on the data structures that are used internally at Ceph, they could be come back in a random order. They are not. I mean, they are in Rados, whatever, OMAP databases, and they are in order. But still, it's quite a good feedback to enforce the strict sorting and to ensure that no matter how they are returned, they are the ones you actually want to delete.
Well, if we have either, we've done it in the past, yes, either we reference the documentation and say, here is the doc that says that this is enforced, or we point to the code in the server or the client or anywhere saying, this is what we can do it this way.
That'd be my approach, as well, But
that is good enough.
Please leave the review remark, and
I left it.
I'll pick it up and make sure that's done. Maybe if the RBD client doesn't have a feature, I can still sort it in the code, right?
Yeah, or maybe the client allows you to ask for it in order, or whatever.
Yeah, but even if not, I could still, if there was no capability, I can still, because I address them by name anyway, and it's my naming. I name them, or Cinder Backup does create the names. I know I can sort them by the same pattern or same,
Well, to be honest, I don't have complaints about the code itself. Besides the moving that part of the code to a different method.
Yes. All right.
Mhm.
Yeah, drop it all in. I'll pick it up
Yep.
at the latest on Monday, and yeah, push another revision then.
Will do.
All right. Yeah. There's plenty more we could talk about. I don't know if I actually do want to start another topic. Honestly, I brought up the spec thing, and that's about it. The only other thing I had is the this chunk driver performance thing, but I don't know who is actually. I mean, you gave some feedback on it, because we want to actually move away from only Ceph, but actually use object storage, S3 based object storage, but the chunk driver lacks in performance. Yeah, but you gave some feedback. But I believe you talked about this during the PTG.
Yeah, that is such a complex problem, to be honest. The whole, I mean, I would love to see that improved.
I think Pete was doing some testing around Swift and S3, like to improve chunk backup driver performance and testing on these drivers. But yeah, I'm not sure he can only tell.
Yeah, he wrote in 276. He wrote that because of the encrypted backups, that the problem took a backseat. But I mean, this is it. Then we're all through with the things I had. Honestly, doesn't look like it, but it's a pretty big tree of links about the backup performance I just mentioned with the chunk driver. Or the previous PTG or the previous weeklies we talked about it. Who said what? But then it's just. Yeah, that thing. Wow, guys, thank you very much for devoting all this time to the Cinder backup functionality. It's greatly appreciated. Really cool.
Thank you for
Yeah,
your
thanks
contributions.
for driving
Thanks
it.
for working on it.
Yeah, as I said, gonna address all the remarks you had on the review and push another revision, and yeah, nag you about it via the reply and Garrett. All right.
That's the way it works. So
All right.
good.
So it's 6 now. I'm just gonna call it a week here. If you attend any, or if you talk about more things, good luck in having good discussion and finding good solutions. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, cheers. Have a good weekend.
Yep. Thank you. Yep.
Thanks.
Likewise.
All right. So I think there's no reason for us to have to stick around.
Yeah, we've been sitting here for 3 solid hours without a single break.
And now
Wait, do people get breaks?
Not today. I was tempted to say
Sorry,
goodnight,
Ryan.
but yeah.
I
You
was
were
thinking, did we need to record this session? I mean, is this recording helpful for anyone? We were just sitting and reviewing things.
Probably not. I should have stopped it. I guess I can just delete it when it.
Yeah, hopefully.
Or maybe stop
Right.
it now at
Let me
least.
stop the recording though, because it's only getting longer.